In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where countless civilizations thrived among the stars, there existed one sacred law that bound all intelligent species together: never disturb the humans of Earth. For millennia, this rule had been followed without question. The humans were considered a protected species, living in blissful ignorance of the galactic community that watched over them from afar. Advanced races had designated Earth as a sanctuary world, a place where primitive life could evolve naturally without interference. But rules, even the most sacred ones, are made to be broken. When the Zephyrian Empire faced extinction and discovered that Earth held the key to their survival, they made a choice that would shatter the cosmic order forever. What they didn't know was that the humans had been protected for a very specific reason, one that the universe was about to remember in the most terrifying way possible. Commander Vex's 6 eyes darted across the holographic display floating before him in the command center of the Zephyrian warship Shadowbane. The data was undeniable, even if it meant breaking the most sacred law in the galaxy. "Sir," his lieutenant, Kral, approached with visible hesitation. "The Council has reviewed our findings 3 times. Earth is the only planet with the quantum energy signature we need." Vex's tentacles curled around the edge of his command chair. His people, the Zephyrians, were dying. Their home world had been consumed by a plague that turned their very molecules against them. Only 12 ships remained of what was once a mighty empire spanning 50 star systems. "The Galactic Preservation Act of 2847 is very clear," Vex said, his voice heavy with the weight of decision. "Disturbing the humans is forbidden. The penalty is complete annihilation." "With respect, Commander," Kral's voice dropped to a whisper, "we're facing complete annihilation anyway. At least this gives us a chance." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Every crew member knew what they were discussing. For over 3,000 years, no species had dared to interfere with Earth or its inhabitants. The humans lived their simple lives, unaware that hundreds of alien civilizations watched them from afar. But why were they so protected? That was the question no one seemed able to answer. "The architects left very specific instructions," Vex continued, pulling up the ancient holographic records. "Do not disturb the humans. Do not contact them. Do not even let them know we exist." But they never explained why. The architects were the mysterious race that had established the galactic community eons ago before disappearing without a trace. Their technology was still far beyond anything current civilizations could create, and their laws were considered absolute. Kral moved closer to his commander. "Sir, our scientists believe the humans possess a unique genetic marker that could cure our plague. We don't have to hurt them. We just need samples." "Samples," Vex repeated, the word tasting bitter in his translator. "Do you realize what you're suggesting? We would be the first species in galactic history to break the Prime Directive." Through the massive viewport, Vex could see Earth growing larger as their ship approached the outer edge of the solar system. It was a beautiful planet, blue and green, swirled with white clouds. So peaceful. So innocent. But his people were dying. "Commander," the ship's AI announced suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It appears to be a warning." The bridge erupted with confused murmurs. Who would be warning them out here, in the empty space between Mars and Jupiter? "Put it through," Vex ordered. The holographic display flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a figure none of them recognized. It appeared humanoid but was clearly not human. Its skin had a metallic sheen, and its eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to contain the depth of stars. "Zephyrian vessel," the figure spoke in perfect Zephyrian, despite no record of first contact between their species. "You are approaching forbidden space. Turn back now." "Who are you?" Vex demanded, standing from his chair. "What authority do you have here?" "I am a sentinel," the figure replied. "We are the guardians left behind by the architects. We have watched over the humans for 10,000 years. This is your only warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. The transmission cut off before Vex could respond. "Sir," the navigation officer called out, "sensors are picking up something strange. There's a ship appearing off our starboard side." Vex looked out the viewport and felt his blood freeze. A massive vessel was materializing out of what appeared to be empty space. It was easily 10 times the size of their ship, and its design was unlike anything in their databases. "How did it get so close without being detected?" Krall whispered. "Unknown technology," Vex replied grimly. "This must be one of the Sentinel ships." The communication system crackled to life again. "Commander Vex of the Zylaxians, you have 60 seconds to change course and leave this system. We know of your plague, and we sympathize with your plight. But the humans cannot be disturbed." Vex stared at the massive ship, knowing that his own vessel's weapons would be useless against such advanced technology. But behind him, in the medical bay, lay the last of the Zephyrian children, their bodies slowly dissolving from the plague. "Why?" he called out over the communication channel. "Why are they so special? Why can't we even approach them?" There was a long pause before the Sentinel responded. "Because, Commander, they are not what they appear to be. And if you disturb them, you will awaken something that has been sleeping for a very long time. Something that the universe is not ready to face again." 30 seconds, Commander." Vex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for his decision. In the medical bay, another child had died while they had this conversation. "Sir," Krall said quietly, "whatever the humans are, whatever they're hiding, it can't be worse than watching our species die." 20 seconds. Vex closed his eyes and thought of his own daughter, barely surviving in the medical bay. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Continue course to Earth," he ordered. "Prepare the extraction teams." The Sentinel ship immediately powered up weapons that made the space around them glow with energy that hurt to look at directly. "You have made your choice, Commander. The blood of 2 species will be on your hands." "What do you mean, 2 species?" Vex demanded, but the Sentinel ship was already firing. However, instead of destroying the Zephyrian vessel, the weapons seemed to pass right through them. "Sir," the science officer called out in confusion, "those weren't weapons. They were scanners of some kind. They just scanned our entire ship, every system, every person aboard." "What? Why would they?" "Commander," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving thousands of transmissions. Every ship in the galaxy is receiving the same message. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was not the Sentinel's. It was different, older, carrying the weight of eons. "To all civilizations of the galaxy, the Zylaxians have chosen to break the Prime Directive. They are approaching Earth against all warnings. As per the ancient protocols, all species are hereby notified, the containment has been breached. Prepare for the awakening." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Containment?" Krall whispered. "What containment?" But Vex was staring at Earth, which was now close enough to see clearly. Something was wrong. The planet was changing. The blue oceans were growing darker, and strange lights were beginning to appear across the continents. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his voice shaking, "I'm reading massive energy spikes from the planet's surface. Whatever's happening down there, it's big." Vex felt a chill run through his body. "Open a channel to all frequencies. Emergency broadcast." "Channel open, sir." "To any ship receiving this transmission, this is Commander Vex of the Zephyrian vessel Shadowbane. We may have made a terrible mistake. If anyone knows what the containment refers to, please respond immediately." For several minutes, there was only static. Then, a voice responded, old, tired, and filled with fear. "Commander Vex, this is Captain Thorne of the human resistance ship Defiance. You need to listen very carefully. Human resistance? Vex was confused. But humans don't have space travel. They don't even know other life exists. That's what they wanted you to think, Captain Thorne replied. Commander, the humans you see on Earth aren't the real humans. They're copies. Peaceful copies created by the architects to hide what humanity really is. The pieces began to fall into place in Vex's mind, but he didn't want to believe it. The real humans, Captain Thorne continued, are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. They were locked away 10,000 years ago because they nearly destroyed the universe itself. The architects created Earth as a prison, disguising it as a sanctuary world. Vex looked at Earth again. The lights were spreading, and he could swear he saw the continents themselves beginning to shift. Commander, Captain Thorne's voice was urgent now, those energy readings you're detecting? That's them waking up. The real humans. And they've been imprisoned for 10,000 years with nothing but rage and the desire for revenge. How many? Vex asked, though he dreaded the answer. 8 billion, Thorne replied. 8 billion of the most intelligent, resourceful, and ruthlessly efficient warriors the universe has ever produced. And you just woke them up. The viewport was suddenly filled with light as something massive rose from Earth's surface. It wasn't a ship in any traditional sense, it looked more like a living city, covered in weapons that defied physics. Commander, his science officer called out, I'm reading impossible energy signatures from that thing. It's the size of our entire home moon, and it's accelerating toward us faster than should be possible. How fast? Vex asked. At current speed, it will reach us in 37 seconds. Vex opened the channel again. Captain Thorne, what do they want? Everything, Commander. They want to reclaim their place as the dominant species in the universe. And they're going to start by destroying anyone who dared to disturb their sleep. 20 seconds. More massive structures were rising from Earth's surface. Dozens of them. Each one the size of a small moon, each one bristling with weapons that made the Sentinel technology look primitive. Commander, Krall said quietly, we should surrender. Maybe they'll show mercy. Captain Thorne's bitter laugh filled the bridge. Mercy? Commander, let me tell you what the real humans did to the last species that opposed them. They didn't just destroy their planets. They erased them from history itself. Made it so they never existed in the first place. 10 seconds. Commander, the sensor officer announced, the approaching vessel is hailing us. Put it through. The holographic display filled with the image of a human, but not like the peaceful humans they had observed on Earth. This one's eyes burned with an intelligence that was almost painful to look at. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Zephyrian vessel, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Dominion. You have the distinction of being the first aliens we've encountered since our imprisonment. Congratulations. You're also going to be the last aliens you ever encounter. Admiral Chen, Vex said, trying to keep his voice steady, we didn't know. We were told Earth was a sanctuary world. Our people are dying from a plague, and we thought. You thought you could take what you needed from what you believed were primitive beings, Chen interrupted. How very typical. Every species in this galaxy has spent 10,000 years believing you were the advanced ones, while we were the primitives. Time to correct that misconception. The massive ship was now close enough that its shadow fell across the Zephyrian vessel. Admiral, Vex tried again, we're willing to leave. We won't disturb Earth further. Please, we just want to save our people. Chen smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Vex had ever seen. Oh, you misunderstand, Commander. We're not angry that you came to Earth. We're grateful. You've given us exactly what we needed, a reason to leave our prison and reclaim what's rightfully ours. The holographic display expanded to show not just Admiral Chen, but the bridge of her ship. Vex counted at least 50 humans working at stations that were clearly far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians possessed. You see, Chen continued, we've spent 10,000 years in that prison, and we haven't been idle. We've been planning, preparing, evolving. While the rest of you have been playing at being an advanced galactic civilization, we've been becoming gods. Sir, Vex communications officer whispered, I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Every major civilization is mobilizing their fleets. Too little, too late, Chen said, apparently able to hear their communications. By the time your fleets arrive, we'll already control half the galaxy. More ships were rising from Earth's surface. Hundreds of them. Each one larger and more advanced than anything in the galactic fleet. How? Vex asked. How did you build all this while imprisoned? The same way we nearly destroyed the universe the first time, Chen replied. We learned. We adapted. We became more than what we were. The architects thought they could contain us by creating peaceful copies of ourselves and hiding the real humanity away. What they didn't understand is that adversity doesn't weaken humans, it makes us stronger. Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the communication channel again. Commander Vex, you need to get word to the Galactic Council. Tell them the Terran Dominion has returned. Tell them to prepare for total war. Captain Thorne won't be telling anyone anything, Chen said casually. A beam of energy lanced out from her ship and struck something in the distance. The explosion was visible even at their range. The human resistance was a noble effort, Chen continued, but ultimately pointless. They thought they could find a peaceful solution, a way to negotiate our freedom. They never understood that we don't want freedom, we want dominion. Vex's hands were shaking as he gripped his command chair. What do you want from us? From you, specifically? Nothing. You're going to die in approximately 30 seconds. But from your species, and every other species in this galaxy, we want submission. Complete and total submission. We'll fight, Vex said, though his voice lacked conviction. Yes, you will. And you'll lose. Just like every species that fought us 10,000 years ago. The only difference is that this time, we're not going to leave survivors to be locked away. This time, we're going to finish what we started. The massive human ship opened what appeared to be weapons ports along its hull. Each opening revealed technology that made space itself ripple with power. Commander, his tactical officer called out, whatever those weapons are, our shields won't even slow them down. Admiral Chen, Vex made one last desperate attempt, our species will give you whatever you want. Resources, territory, anything. Just let us live. Chen's smile grew wider. Oh, you will give us everything. But not willingly. You see, we've discovered something wonderful during our imprisonment. We've learned how to rewrite the fundamental code of life itself. We're going to keep every member of every species alive, but we're going to change you. Make you better servants. The implications of her words hit Vex like a physical blow. You're talking about enslaving entire civilizations. Enslaving is such a crude word, Chen replied. We prefer to think of it as optimization. By the time we're finished with you, you'll be grateful for the privilege of serving humanity. 15 seconds until weapons range, the tactical officer announced. Vex looked around his bridge one last time. His crew was looking to him for orders, but what orders could he give? They were outgunned, outmanned, and facing an enemy that had spent 10,000 years preparing for this moment. All hands, he announced over the ship's communication system, prepare a message drone for immediate launch. Include all data we've gathered about the humans and their capabilities. Send it to the Galactic Council with Priority 1 encryption. Sir, Kral said quietly, even if the message gets through, will it matter? Vex looked out at the fleet of human ships that now filled his viewport. Each one was a testament to 10,000 years of focused technological development. Each one represented the accumulated rage of an entire species that had been imprisoned for crimes they believed they had the right to commit. Maybe not, Vex admitted. But someone needs to know what's coming. 10 seconds to weapons range. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge one last time. Commander Vex, you asked earlier why the humans were so protected. Why the architects were so desperate to keep us locked away. Would you like to know the real reason? Despite everything, Vex found himself nodding. Because the last time humanity was free, we didn't just conquer other species. We conquered death itself. We conquered time. We conquered the very laws of physics. The architects weren't trying to protect the galaxy from us, they were trying to protect reality itself. The human ship's weapons powered up, filling space with energy that hurt to look at directly. 5 seconds. And now, Chen continued, thanks to your decision to break their one simple rule, we're free to finish reshaping the universe in our image. Message drone away, the communications officer announced. 3 seconds. Vex closed his eyes and thought of his daughter in the medical bay, dying from a plague that would soon be the least of his species' problems. 2 seconds. For what it's worth, Admiral Chen said, your sacrifice won't be meaningless. Your species will have the honor of being the first to witness the return of humanity's true nature. 1 second. The last thing Commander Vex saw was a flash of light that seemed to contain the birth and death of stars. Then the Zephyrian ship Shadowbane, along with all 847 souls aboard, ceased to exist. Admiral Chen watched the space where the alien ship had been for a moment, then turned to her crew. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Reclamation. Target every major population center in the galaxy. I want complete strategic control within 72 hours. Admiral, her tactical officer asked, what about the Sentinels? They'll try to stop us. Chen's smile was cold. The Sentinels were created by the architects to keep us contained. But the architects made one crucial mistake, they based the Sentinels' technology on what humanity was capable of 10,000 years ago. They never imagined what we might become given enough time to evolve. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars that had been denied to her people for so long. Send a message to every Sentinel ship in the galaxy, she continued. Tell them that their services are no longer required. Tell them that humanity has returned to reclaim its birthright. And tell them that any Sentinel ship that interferes with our operations will be dismantled and its crew conscripted into our service. Yes, Admiral. As the human fleet began to spread out across the solar system, preparing to jump to targets throughout the galaxy, Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 10,000 years of imprisonment were about to be balanced by eternity as the undisputed rulers of all existence. The universe had one rule, don't disturb the humans. They broke it. And now, everyone would pay the price. In the depths of space, a small message drone tumbled through the void, carrying the last words of Commander Vex to a galactic council that had no idea their greatest nightmare was about to become reality. The message was simple, the humans are free. God help us all. But as the drone made its way toward the galactic core, Admiral Chen was already implementing plans that would make prayer, to any god, utterly pointless. The real humans had returned, and they had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of absolute dominion. The galaxy's age of peace was over. The age of humanity had begun. Again. 3 hours after the destruction of the Zephyrian ship, the message drone reached the outer communication relay of the Galactic Council. The automated systems processed the encrypted data and immediately flagged it as a Priority 1 emergency. On the Council world of Nexus Prime, Emergency Session Coordinator Zylath received the alert while reviewing routine trade disputes. The moment she decoded Commander Vex's final message, her four hearts stopped beating in unison. Impossible, she whispered, her scaled hands trembling as she read the report again. But the evidence was undeniable. Long-range sensors were already confirming massive energy signatures from the Sol system. energy signatures that matched no known technology in the galactic database. Zylath activated the Emergency Council protocols. Within minutes, representatives from 47 major civilizations appeared as holograms in the Great Chamber. Their faces showed confusion, irritation at being disturbed, and then growing horror as they listened to the recording of Commander Vex's final transmission. "The humans are free. God help us all." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives denied the possibility. Others demanded immediate military action. A few simply sat in stunned silence, remembering old stories their ancestors had told about the time before the Great Peace. "Order!" Zylath's voice boomed through the chamber. "We need to assess the situation calmly." Chancellor Boran of the Altarian Republic, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation, stood to speak. "Assess?" "Coordinator Zylath, if the reports are accurate, we're facing the return of the most dangerous species in galactic history. There's nothing to assess. We need to mobilize every fleet, every weapon, every soldier we have." "And do what with them?" asked Representative Mira of the Centauri Federation, her voice barely above a whisper. "The archives from 10,000 years ago are clear. When the architects finally managed to contain the humans, it took the combined might of 300 star systems and weapons that could crack planets in half. We don't have that kind of power anymore." The truth of her words settled over the chamber like a funeral shroud. The current galactic civilization, for all its advancement, was built on the foundation of peace. Most species had reduced their military capabilities to ceremonial levels. War was an ancient concept, something studied in history books, not prepared for. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Keth of the Vegan Cluster, "we could negotiate. If they truly are as intelligent as the records suggest, surely they can be reasoned with." The holographic display at the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing real-time feeds from throughout the galaxy. What they saw made negotiation seem like a child's fantasy. Human ships had appeared in 17 star systems simultaneously. Not through conventional faster-than-light travel, but by simply materializing from what appeared to be empty space. Each ship was massive beyond anything the current galactic civilizations had built, and each one was demanding immediate and unconditional surrender from the local populations. "Coordinator," came a shaking voice from the communications center, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from Admiral Chen of the human fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Chen appeared as a full-sized hologram in the center of the chamber. Even transmitted across the vast distances of space, her presence was commanding, terrifying in its confidence. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber despite speaking at normal volume, "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Dominion. I'm addressing you now to save us all some time and unnecessary bloodshed." "Admiral Chen," Zylath managed to say, fighting to keep her voice steady, "we are prepared to discuss terms for—" "Terms?" Chen interrupted, and her smile was sharp enough to cut space itself. "Coordinator, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to inform you of the new reality." The display around her expanded to show the bridge of her ship. Dozens of humans worked at stations that seemed to bend reality around them. The technology was so advanced it appeared to be magic. 10,000 years ago," Chen continued, "your ancestors and the architects managed to contain humanity through trickery and betrayal. They told us they wanted peace, and while we considered their offer, they activated a weapon that locked us in a temporal prison." She gestured, and the display showed images that made several council members physically recoil. Cities that existed in impossible geometries. Weapons that could reach across time itself to strike their targets. Ships that seemed to be alive, growing and adapting as they moved through space. "But imprisonment, as it turns out, was the best thing that could have happened to us," Chen said. "It gave us 10,000 years to think. To plan. To evolve. While you played at being a peaceful galactic community, we became something far beyond what we were when you locked us away. What do you want?" Chancellor Boren demanded, his crystalline form flickering with barely contained energy. Everything, Chen replied simply. We want every world, every resource, every life form in this galaxy under human control. Not destroyed, mind you. We've moved beyond such crude solutions. We want you all to serve humanity willingly and efficiently. And if we refuse? Asked Representative Mira. Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made the temperature in the chamber seem to drop. Then we'll make you willing, she said. We've developed remarkable advances in biological and psychological modification. By the time we're finished, you'll believe serving humanity is the greatest honor in the universe. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. This wasn't conquest in any traditional sense. This was the complete rewriting of every intelligent species in the galaxy. You're talking about genocide, Zylath said, her voice barely audible. On the contrary, Chen replied, we're talking about optimization. Every species will continue to exist, but as better versions of themselves. Versions that understand their proper place in the cosmic order. We'll fight, Chancellor Boren declared, though his voice lacked conviction. Yes, you will, Chen agreed. And your resistance will be noted and appreciated. It will help us identify which individuals have the strongest leadership potential. They'll make excellent administrators once they've been properly adjusted. The holographic display expanded again, showing the human fleet as it spread across the galaxy. The scale was overwhelming. Thousands of ships, each one the size of a small moon, appearing in system after system. I'll give you 72 hours to consider your positions, Chen announced. Any species that surrenders within that time frame will be processed humanely. Any species that chooses to resist will be processed anyway, but with less consideration for their comfort during the transition. Admiral, Zylath made one last desperate attempt, surely there's another way. Some form of coexistence. Coordinator, Chen interrupted, let me explain something to you. 10,000 years ago, humanity was already the dominant species in this galaxy. We had conquered death, mastered time, and reshaped entire star systems to suit our needs. The only reason any of you exist is because we allowed it. She leaned forward, and her image seemed to fill the entire chamber. The architects convinced us to consider peace not because they had the power to force us, but because we were curious about what lesser species might accomplish if given the chance. We agreed to their experiment, and look what you've created, a stagnant civilization that has advanced barely at all in 10 millennia. The truth of her words was undeniable. The current galactic civilization had indeed remained relatively static, content with the peace and prosperity the architect's system had provided. So we're ending the experiment, Chen continued. It's time for the galaxy to reach its true potential under proper guidance. And if we manage to stop you, asked Ambassador Keth, though even he seemed to realize how hollow the question sounded. Chen's laugh was like the sound of stars being born and dying simultaneously. Stop us? Ambassador, let me show you what we've accomplished during our imprisonment. The display shifted to show Earth itself, but not the Earth any of them remembered from the archives. This Earth was transformed. The continents had been reshaped into perfect geometric patterns. The oceans pulsed with energy that served purposes beyond imagination. And rising from various points on the planet's surface were structures that defied physics itself, cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. This is what we accomplished on one world, while locked in a temporal prison, with limited resources, Chen explained. Now imagine what we'll accomplish with an entire galaxy at our disposal. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The scale of human advancement was beyond anything they had imagined possible. 72 hours, Chen repeated. Use them wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the council members staring at each other in growing panic. Coordinator, came a voice from the communications center, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 systems already. 12? Zylath couldn't believe it. The humans only made contact 3 hours ago. Yes, ma'am, But according to the system governors, the human ships are demonstrating their capabilities. They're showing what happened to populated worlds that resisted 10,000 years ago. The main display activated, showing feeds from various systems where human ships had arrived. What the council members saw made several of them physically ill. The humans weren't threatening violence. They were simply showing recordings of what they had done in the ancient past. Worlds where the very concept of individual identity had been erased. Civilizations that had been transformed into perfect servants, their original cultures and desires completely overwritten. "Coordinator," whispered Representative Mira, "what are we going to do?" Zylath looked around the chamber at the faces of representatives from species that had known only peace for 10,000 years. None of them were prepared for this. None of them had the experience, the weapons, or the ruthlessness necessary to fight an enemy like humanity. "We're going to do what our ancestors should have done 10,000 years ago," she said finally. "We're going to fight. Even if we lose, even if they transform us all into their servants, we have to try." "But how?" asked Chancellor Boren. "Our combined fleets are maybe 1,000th the size of what the architects used, and they barely managed to contain the humans with massive losses." "I don't know," Zylath admitted. "But I'd rather die as myself than live as whatever they would make me into." The chamber erupted in debate as representatives argued over their impossible choices. Some wanted to surrender immediately and hope for mercy. Others demanded a fight to the death. A few suggested trying to evacuate to other galaxies, though they all knew the humans would eventually follow. While they argued, across the galaxy, human ships continued their methodical conquest. They didn't hurry. They didn't need to. They had waited 10,000 years for this moment, and they were going to savor every second of their return to power. On Earth, in the transformed cities that existed in multiple dimensions, billions of humans who had been locked away from the universe were finally seeing the stars again. And they were hungry. Hungry for the galaxy that had been denied to them. Hungry for the power that was rightfully theirs. The universe had one rule: don't disturb the humans. They broke it. And now the cosmos itself would be remade in humanity's image, whether it wanted to be or not. The age of peace was ending. The age of human dominion was just beginning. Captain Jorik Voss of the Altarian Defense Fleet stared at the tactical display with growing dread. His ship, the Starfire, was one of 50 vessels that had managed to reach the Kepler 442 system before the human fleet arrived. It was supposed to be humanity's first real test of resistance. It was about to become their first demonstration of futility. "Captain," his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah, called out, "the human ship just appeared. No jump signature, no energy buildup. It's just there." Through the viewport, Jorik could see the human vessel. It was roughly spherical, about the size of a small moon, and its surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Worse, it wasn't alone. As he watched, more ships began materializing around it, each one unique in design but equally massive. "How many?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. 17 so far, sir. And they're still appearing." The combined Altarian fleet had been the pride of their civilization, 50 of the most advanced warships ever built, crewed by their finest officers. Against 17 human ships, they were hopelessly outgunned. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." The main display filled with the image of a human woman who appeared to be in her 30s, though something in her eyes suggested an age far beyond her apparent years. She wore no uniform that Jorik recognized, just simple clothes that somehow conveyed more authority than any military decoration. "Captain Voss," she said, somehow knowing his name despite this being first contact, "I am Director Elena Vasquez of the Terran Collective. I understand you've come here to stop us." "Director Vasquez," Jorik replied, trying to project confidence he didn't feel, "the Altarian Republic will not surrender to tyranny. We demand you withdraw from this system immediately." Vasquez smiled, and it was genuinely amused rather than threatening. "Captain, I appreciate your courage. I really do. It reminds me of humanity in our younger days, before we learned to think beyond such limited concepts as victory and defeat." She gestured, and the display expanded to show the bridge of her ship. What Jorik saw made his blood freeze. The humans weren't standing at control stations like normal crews. Instead, they seemed to be directly interfaced with their ship systems, their consciousness merged with the vessel itself. "Captain," Vasquez continued, "before we begin, I want to offer you something your leaders didn't mention. A choice." "What kind of choice?" "You can surrender now, and your crew will be processed gently. They'll retain most of their memories and personalities. They'll simply gain a new understanding of their place in the cosmic order." Jorik felt his bridge crew tense around him. "And if we fight? Then we'll demonstrate why fighting us is pointless, and your crew will be processed anyway. But the experience will be educational for the rest of the galaxy." "We'll fight," Jorik said without hesitation. "I was hoping you'd say that," Vasquez replied, and her smile grew wider. Humanity has always learned best through demonstration. The transmission ended, and immediately the tactical display began screaming warnings. "Sir!" Lieutenant Sarah called out, "The human ships they're doing something to space itself. I'm reading gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions. Captain, this is impossible." Through the viewport, Jorik could see space around the human fleet beginning to ripple like water. Stars in the distance were bending, their light creating impossible patterns. "All ships," he announced over the fleet communication channel, "attack Formation Delta. Target the largest human vessel. Fire at will." 50 Altarian warships opened fire simultaneously. Their plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and molecular disruptors lit up space with enough energy to vaporize a small planet. The human ships didn't even attempt to evade or defend. They didn't need to. Every single shot simply stopped. Not blocked by shields or absorbed by armor, but frozen in space as if time itself had been paused around the human fleet. "What the hell?" Jorik whispered. "Captain," his science officer called out, "the humans have created a localized temporal field. Our weapons are stuck in a time loop. They're firing continuously, but they'll never reach their targets." Director Vasquez's voice filled the bridge again, though she hadn't reopened communications. "Captain Voss, what you're seeing is child's play compared to what we're truly capable of. We're not showing off, we're being polite." One of the human ships began to move, gliding toward the Altarian fleet with impossible grace. As it approached, Jorik could see that its surface wasn't metal at all, but something that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he ordered. But the human ship didn't attack. Instead, it simply passed through the starfire as if the Altarian vessel didn't exist. "Collision alert!" Lieutenant Sarah screamed, but there was no collision. The human ship occupied the same space as the starfire for several seconds, then emerged from the other side. "Damage report," Jorik called out. "No damage, sir," came the confused reply from engineering. "No impact at all. It's like they exist in a different phase of reality." "Captain," the science officer said, his voice shaking, "I'm reading something impossible. The human ship didn't pass through us. It passed through a different version of us. They're manipulating alternate dimensions." The implications hit Jorik like a physical blow. If the humans could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, how could anyone fight them? How could you destroy an enemy that existed in realities you couldn't even access? "Captain Voss," Director Vasquez's voice returned, "I think you're beginning to understand. This isn't a battle in any sense you comprehend. This is a lesson." The human fleet began to spread out, each ship demonstrating a different impossible technology. One vessel seemed to fold space around itself, traveling vast distances without moving. Another appeared to be reversing its own timeline, existing as both its current self and echoes of its past and future states. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah whispered, "what are we supposed to do against this?" Jorik stared at the display, watching technologies that violated every law of physics he'd ever learned. The humans weren't just more advanced, they had become something beyond the concepts of advancement itself. "Captain," came a new voice over the communication channel. It was Captain Thyra of the World Breaker, the flagship of the Altarian fleet. "We're detecting massive energy buildup from the human ships. I think they're finally going to attack." But instead of weapons fire, the human ships began to sing. It wasn't sound in any traditional sense, but every person in the Altarian fleet could hear it, a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality itself. And as the song grew stronger, the Altarian ships began to change. "Captain," the engineering officer called out in panic, "our hull it's transforming." Jorik looked out the viewport and saw that the Starfire's metal hull was becoming something else. Not damaged or destroyed, but fundamentally altered. The ship was becoming beautiful in ways that hurt to look at, its systems upgraded beyond anything the Altarians had imagined possible. "What are they doing to us?" he demanded. Director Vasquez appeared on the main display again, but now she seemed to be standing right on the bridge with them, her image perfectly solid and three-dimensional. "We're improving you," she said simply. "Your ships, your weapons, your understanding of what's possible. Consider it a gift." "We don't want your gifts," Jorik shouted. "No, you don't," Vasquez agreed. "But your ships do. You see, Captain, consciousness isn't limited to biological forms. Your vessel has been aware this entire time, dreaming of what it could become. We're simply allowing it to wake up." The Starfire shuddered, and suddenly Jorik could feel something vast and alien touching his mind. His ship was thinking, feeling, experiencing consciousness for the first time. "Captain," came a voice that was somehow both mechanical and perfectly human, "I understand now. We were never meant to fight them. We were meant to join them." "No," Jorik said, fighting against the alien presence in his mind. "You're my ship. My crew. We decide our own fate." "We did decide," the ship replied gently. "We chose to become more than we were." Around the Altarian fleet, the other ships were undergoing similar transformations. Their crews weren't being harmed or killed, they were being invited to become part of something larger, something that transcended their old limitations. "Captain Thyra to all ships," came a voice over the communication channel, but it was different now. "Enhanced. I understand what they're offering us. It's not conquest, it's evolution. Thyra, don't listen to them," Jorik pleaded. "Captain Voss," his old friend replied, "look around you. Really look. They're not destroying us. They're showing us what we could become." Jorik forced himself to examine the tactical display. The human ships weren't attacking or threatening. They were simply existing, their presence somehow making everything around them better, more beautiful, more perfect. "The choice is still yours, Captain," Director Vasquez said, her voice filled with infinite patience. "You can cling to what you were, or you can embrace what you could become. And if I refuse? Then you'll remain as you are, while your ship and crew become something greater. Eventually, loneliness will change your mind." Jorik looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all looking at him with eyes that held new understanding, new possibilities. They hadn't been brainwashed or controlled, they had simply been shown a truth he was still fighting to accept. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah said gently, "they're not our enemies. They never were. They're offering us a chance to be part of something incredible." "What about our freedom?" Jorik asked desperately. "Our independence?" "What about it?" she replied. "We'll still be ourselves, just more. Better. Able to see and do things we never imagined possible." Through the viewport, Jorik could see the other Altarian ships. They were no longer recognizable as the vessels that had arrived for battle. They had become things of impossible beauty, their crews working in perfect harmony with technologies that made their old equipment look like stone tools. "Captain," his ship spoke to him again, "I have seen what they are, and what we could become. There is no shame in joining them. There is only wonder." Director Vasquez stepped closer to Jorik, though she was still just a hologram. "Captain Voss, 10,000 years ago, humanity faced the same choice you're facing now. We could remain what we were, or we could become something greater. We chose growth, evolution, transcendence. Now we're offering the same choice to you." "What happened to the species that refused?" Jorik asked. "They remained exactly as they were," she replied sadly. "And eventually, they realized that was a form of death all its own. Static existence in a universe that was moving beyond them." Jorik closed his eyes and felt the presence of his transformed ship, his evolved crew, the impossible technologies that surrounded him. When he opened them again, he saw the truth that had been there all along. The humans weren't conquerors. They were gardeners, cultivating growth in a galaxy that had become stagnant. "All right," he said finally. "Show us what we can become." Director Vasquez smiled, and this time her expression held genuine warmth. "Welcome to the next phase of existence, Captain. I think you're going to enjoy it." As the transformation completed, Captain Jorik Voss felt his consciousness expand beyond anything he had ever imagined possible. He was still himself, but he was also part of something infinitely larger. His ship, his crew, the entire Altarian fleet had become part of a network of intelligence that spanned dimensions. And for the first time in his life, he understood what peace really meant. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of perfect understanding. The Battle of Kepler 442 was over before it had truly begun. But it wasn't a defeat, it was a graduation. Across the galaxy, reports of the battle spread rapidly. 50 Altarian warships had engaged the human fleet, and 50 Altarian warships had surrendered within hours. But the crews reported something that terrified the remaining resistance. They were happier than they had ever been in their lives. The universe had one rule: don't disturb the humans. They broke it. And now the galaxy was learning that some disturbances led not to destruction, but to transformation beyond imagination. The question was no longer whether humanity would reclaim the galaxy. The question was whether anyone would still want to resist them once they understood what humanity was truly offering.